The story opens in a quiet neighborhood, where a little girl named Mia suddenly goes missing during a community picnic. Neighbors gather anxiously, sharing descriptions of Mia and recounting where she was last seen. A local teacher, Mr. Harris, takes the lead in organizing a search party, signaling the urgency and concern that grips the community as everyone begins to realize the severity of the situation. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the grassy expanse of Willow Creek Park. The community picnic was in full swing, children laughing, plates piled high with food, and neighbors exchanging greetings beneath colorful canopies. Among the crowd, little Mia, a bright-eyed 6-year-old with curly brown hair tied in pigtails, darted between clusters of people, a red balloon clutched tightly in one hand. Suddenly, a ripple of alarm cut through the laughter as a voice called out, "Has anyone seen Mia?" Mrs. Caldwell's voice trembled as she scanned the crowd frantically. She was a woman in her late 30s, wearing a floral dress and wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "She was right here just a moment ago." A few heads turned, some faces grew pale. "I was just talking to her near the food table," a young man said, stepping forward. "She was asking for some lemonade, then she disappeared." Near the picnic blanket, a small boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. "I saw her near the playground," he whispered. "She was playing by the swings." Mrs. Caldwell's eyes widened. "The playground? She shouldn't be that far." The murmurs grew louder as more neighbors began to realize the gravity of the situation. People spread out, calling Mia's name. "Where's Mia?" A deep voice rang through the park. Mr. Harris, the local elementary school teacher, pushed his glasses up his nose and stepped toward the center of the gathering crowd. His voice was steady but urgent. "Everyone, please stay calm," he said, raising his hands for attention. "Mia's been with us all afternoon. We'll find her. Let's organize a search and cover the park systematically. I want pairs going to the playground, the parking lot, the nearby trails. Keep your phones on. Call if you spot anything." Several neighbors nodded, their faces set in determined lines. "Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Harris addressed a woman holding a clipboard, "coordinate the volunteers near the playground. Mr. Lee, can you check the parking lot and the roadways?" He turned to a pair of teenagers nearby. "You two, check the wooded area behind the park. And please call 911 as soon as possible." Mrs. Thompson, a sturdy woman with graying hair tied back in a bun, nodded briskly. "I'll get people moving right away." As neighbors split up, the atmosphere shifted. The earlier joy was replaced with a tense urgency. Voices carried across the park shouts of "Mia!" and "Over here!" punctuated the afternoon. Meanwhile, Mrs. Caldwell paced near the picnic table where Mia had been moments earlier, wringing her hands. "Please," she whispered, eyes brimming with tears. "Come back." A man in a blue baseball cap approached, his brow furrowed in concern. "Mrs. Caldwell, I saw a man hanging around the playground earlier," he said quietly. "He was standing near the swings just watching the kids." Mrs. Caldwell's head snapped up. "Do you know who he was? Did he say anything?" "No, just stood there. Looked kind of out of place." The information spread quickly, adding an edge of fear to the search. Mr. Harris returned to the group, gathering people near the park's entrance. "Listen up," he said firmly. "We're dealing with a missing child. We need to cover every inch of this area. If you find anything at all, call it in immediately." He glanced toward the playground, where a handful of volunteers were scanning the swings, slides, and sandbox, eyes sharp for any sign of Mia. A young mother holding a toddler wiped her nose and said, "I can't believe this is happening here. It's such a safe neighborhood." Mr. Harris nodded somberly. "It usually is. But right now we have to be vigilant." As the search party fanned out, the sun began to dip below the trees, casting a golden glow over the anxious crowd. Voices called out again, "Mia! Mia!" In the distance, a little red balloon bobbed gently in the breeze, tied loosely to a swing set. Mrs. Thompson's voice crackled over the radio. "No sign near the playground yet. Expanding the search to the back trails." Mr. Harris checked his watch. "We have to keep going. No one leaves until we find her." The community's hope hung precariously in the balance, every minute stretching longer, every shadow deepening the uncertainty. The search had only just begun. The afternoon shadows lengthened as the search for Mia intensified. Volunteers moved swiftly through the park, roads, and nearby alleys, their calls echoing in the still air. Phones buzzed constantly, radios crackled with updates, and the community's collective worry deepened. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson, standing near the playground, recalled a detail that sharpened the focus of the search: a suspicious figure seen moments before Mia vanished. The sun dipped lower, coloring the sky with streaks of orange and pink, but the park remained alive with motion. Groups of neighbors, armed with flashlights and phones, fanned out in coordinated directions. Mr. Harris paced near the park's entrance, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the horizon as he directed volunteers. Team 1, cover the North Trail. Team 2, check the parking lot again. Team 3, focus on the playground perimeter. Keep your radios on, he instructed, his voice firm but calm. Near the playground, Mrs. Thompson stood with a small group, her gaze fixed on the swings as she recounted what she had seen earlier. I remember now, she said quietly, pulling her jacket tighter around her. Just before Mia disappeared, I saw a man near the edge of the playground. He wasn't moving much, just watching the kids. Didn't seem to belong here. A young woman with a worried expression asked, "Can you describe him?" Mrs. Thompson nodded slowly. Average height, maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. I didn't get a good look at his face, but something about him seemed off. Across the field, Mr. Harris's radio crackled. Mrs. Thompson, can you relay that description to dispatch? We need to alert the police. She pulled out her phone and spoke quickly into it, her hands trembling. Yes, there's a man near the playground, dark jacket, baseball cap, watching the children. Last seen about 30 minutes ago. Nearby, a volunteer named Carlos jogged up, wiping sweat from his brow. I checked the alley behind the park. No sign of Mia, but I did see footprints leading toward the east side of the neighborhood. Mr. Harris nodded. Good work. Let's have a couple of teams follow those tracks. Everyone else keep calling out her name. As the search expanded beyond the park, the community's concern grew heavier. Parents clutched their children closer, neighbors exchanged anxious glances, and the usual sounds of a sunny afternoon were replaced by tense whispers and urgent calls. At the edge of the park, a group of teenagers moved cautiously through the wooded area. Do you think she could have gone this far? One asked, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, the other replied. But we have to check everywhere. Meanwhile, Mrs. Caldwell stood near the picnic table, watching the search unfold. Her hands were clenched tightly, eyes scanning every face for news. A police officer approached, offering a sympathetic nod. We've dispatched units to patrol the surrounding streets, he said. If anyone sees anything, no matter how small, report it immediately. Mrs. Caldwell swallowed hard. Thank you. Please find her. Back near the playground, Mrs. Thompson glanced toward the swings again, shivering despite the warm air. I can't shake the feeling that man had something to do with this, she murmured. Another volunteer, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. We'll find her, Mrs. Thompson. We won't stop. As dusk settled, the radios continued to buzz with updates. Dispatch to all units. A suspicious man matching the description was last seen near the community center. Proceed with caution. Mr. Harris gathered the remaining volunteers. Let's split into smaller groups. Stay within sight of each other and keep your phones charged. In a nearby alley, a woman named Lisa, who was out walking her dog, stopped abruptly. She spotted a red balloon caught in a tree branch, its ribbon fluttering gently. She tugged at the balloon, freeing it from the branches. Mia, she called softly, looking around. No answer. Lisa's phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Harris. Any sign of Mia in your area? Shaking her head, she typed back. No, but found this balloon near 7th and Maple. The message was forwarded to the search coordinators immediately. As the night approached, the volunteers' energy began to wane, but the determination did not. Flashlights bobbed like fireflies through the darkening park, voices echoing off the trees. Near the parking lot, a group of neighbors called out again, louder this time. Mia, where are you? The silence that followed was heavy and unbroken. Back at the community center, officers gathered, reviewing surveillance footage from nearby cameras. One of the officers pointed at a figure on the screen. A man fitting the description Mrs. Thompson had provided. "That's our guy," he said grimly. "We need to find him and figure out what happened to Mia." Mr. Harris received the update and relayed it to the search teams. "Stay alert. We're closing in." Despite the mounting pressure, the sense of unity among the community remained strong. Strangers became allies, parents became protectors, and the search for Mia became everyone's mission. Every call, every step, and every moment was a thread in the growing tapestry of hope and urgency. The night was far from over. The night air was cool and still, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of voices calling out Mia's name. The search had stretched into the evening, with volunteers combing every corner of the neighborhood. Then a breakthrough. A young boy named Tommy spotted a small figure huddled behind an old shed in an abandoned lot. Relief mingled with concern as Mia was found frightened but unharmed. Her whispered explanation shifted the focus from a simple disappearance to a deeper, more complex story, revealing struggles within her own home. The search party was thinning as fatigue settled over the volunteers. Flashlights flickered against the dark backdrop of the neighborhood's empty streets. Mr. Harris stood near the entrance to an overgrown lot, rubbing his temples, when a sudden voice called out, "Over here. I found something." Tommy's voice was urgent, breathless with excitement. Tommy, a lanky 10-year-old with freckles and a baseball cap turned backward, had been wandering near an abandoned shed at the edge of the neighborhood. His flashlight beam cut through the shadows, revealing the small form of a girl curled up behind the weathered wooden structure. Mia's wide eyes blinked up at the group of adults who quickly surrounded her. She was trembling, dirt smudged on her cheeks, her red balloon forgotten on the ground beside her. Mrs. Caldwell rushed forward, tears springing to her eyes as she knelt beside Mia. "Sweetheart, we've been so worried. Are you okay?" Mia's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm scared," she said, clutching Mrs. Caldwell's hand tightly. "I didn't want to come back." Mr. Harris stepped closer, gently crouching to Mia's level. "Can you tell us what happened, Mia? Why did you run away?" Mia hesitated, glancing nervously over her shoulder, then nodded. "I heard loud noises at home. Mommy and Daddy were yelling. I didn't want them to see me, so I ran." The gathered crowd exchanged concerned looks. This was no longer just a missing child case. It was a sign of something deeper, something troubling beneath the surface. Mrs. Thompson, standing nearby, knelt down and spoke softly. "You're safe now, Mia. We're all here to help you." A volunteer handed Mia a bottle of water, which she took with shaky hands. A police officer approached, kneeling beside Mr. Harris. "Has she had any injuries? Does she need medical attention?" he asked. Mrs. Caldwell shook her head. "No, just scared." Tommy, still holding his flashlight, looked up at the adults. "I'm glad I found her." Mr. Harris smiled gently. "You did a great job, Tommy." As Mia was led toward the waiting police car, she glanced back at the shed, her small voice carrying a heavy weight. "I didn't want to be at home. The yelling scared me." Mrs. Caldwell wiped a tear from her cheek. "We'll make sure you're safe now." An officer spoke quietly into his radio. "We need to look into Mia's home situation. There's more here than just a lost child." Back at the picnic area, neighbors gathered quietly, the earlier tension shifting to relief tempered by new concerns. Mr. Harris addressed the group, his voice steady but somber. "Mia is safe thanks to Tommy and the search teams. But she's been through a lot. We need to make sure she gets the help she needs." Mrs. Thompson nodded. "This is a wake-up call for all of us. We have to watch out for each other, especially the kids." The community's mood grew reflective. The picnic blanket was abandoned, the laughter replaced by whispered conversations about family struggles and the importance of support. Mrs. Caldwell sat beside Mia in the back of the police car, holding her close. "You're not alone anymore, Mia," she whispered. "We're going to help you." As the night deepened, social workers arrived, ready to take Mia into protective care. Mr. Harris coordinated with them, ensuring the child's safety was the community's top priority. The neighbors lingered, some standing in small groups, others sitting silently on park benches, all processing the day's events. A young mother, holding her child tightly, spoke softly to her neighbor. I never realized how much can be hidden behind closed doors. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly man, nodded. We have to be more than neighbors now. We have to be guardians. The search for Mia had ended, but the challenges ahead were just beginning. Mr. Harris looked out over the quiet streets, determination in his eyes. We'll get through this. Together. The community, once fractured by fear, now found strength in unity, ready to face the difficult road ahead with resolve and compassion. The evening had settled into a solemn quiet as the community faced a critical moment. With Mia safe but her story revealing deeper troubles, the focus shifted to confronting her parents and ensuring her well-being. Mr. Harris and other community leaders coordinated with social services, preparing for a difficult but necessary intervention. The tension in the air was palpable, a mixture of hope, concern, and the weight of responsibility as the neighborhood stood together to protect one of its own. Inside a small community meeting room, the soft hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Mr. Harris sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by a handful of neighbors, social workers, and police officers. The atmosphere was heavy but purposeful. We have to act carefully but decisively, Mr. Harris said, folding his hands. Mia's safety is our priority. We know there are issues at home that need immediate attention. A social worker, Ms. Reynolds, nodded. Our team has assessed the situation. We're recommending temporary protective custody for Mia, while her parents undergo evaluation and counseling. Mrs. Caldwell, sitting beside Mr. Harris, clenched her fists. I just want her to be safe. She's been through so much already. An officer spoke quietly. We'll assist with the legal process, ensuring that Mia's rights are protected throughout. Across the room, Mrs. Thompson added, this community has to stand behind her and her family through this. It's not just about intervention. It's about support. The door opened quietly and two people entered, Mia's parents. Their faces were a mix of shock, defensiveness, and anguish. Mrs. Caldwell stood, offering a gentle smile. We're here to help, she said softly, to make sure Mia gets the care she needs. Mia's mother's eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to hurt her. We've been struggling. I didn't know where else to turn. Her husband looked down, voice strained. It got out of hand. We're sorry. Mr. Harris spoke calmly. The first step is getting the right support. Counseling, parenting classes, and working with social services. We want to help your family heal. The conversation was tense but necessary, the weight of unspoken pain hanging between them. Social workers explained the process, the options for family therapy, and resources available to the parents. Outside the meeting room, volunteers gathered in small clusters, discussing the day's events in hushed voices. The community's concern was clear, but so was their resolve. We can't let this happen again, one mother said. We have to watch out for all the kids. Mr. Jenkins, seated nearby, nodded. It's about building trust, keeping lines open. Back inside, the meeting concluded with a plan in place. Mia's parents agreed to participate in the recommended programs, understanding the seriousness of the situation. As they left, Mrs. Caldwell reached out, placing a hand on Mia's mother's arm. You're not alone. We'll help. Outside, Mr. Harris addressed the gathered neighbors. This is just the beginning. Our community must come together. Not just in crisis but every day. The group nodded solemnly, the sense of shared responsibility settling over them. Later, at a neighborhood gathering in the park, a small circle of parents and neighbors formed. The picnic tables were empty now, but the sense of unity was palpable. We need a support network, Mrs. Thompson suggested. Regular meetings, check-ins, so no one falls through the cracks. A young father chimed in. Maybe a neighborhood watch focused on well-being, not just safety. Mr. Harris smiled. That's the spirit. We're stronger together. As the stars emerged overhead, the community's resolve deepened. The ordeal with Mia had exposed vulnerabilities, but also ignited a collective determination to protect and nurture every child. Mrs. Caldwell looked up at the night sky, whispering, We'll keep her safe. We all will. The quiet strength of the neighborhood was their greatest hope, a promise to face the challenges ahead united, vigilant, and compassionate. The community came together one bright afternoon in the park, their faces lit with relief and a renewed sense of unity. Mia was safe, surrounded by caring neighbors who had vowed to watch over one another. The gathering was both a celebration of her rescue and a commitment, a promise that the neighborhood would remain vigilant, protecting its children with shared strength and hope for the future. The sun shone warmly over Willow Creek Park, where colorful banners fluttered in the light breeze. Tables were set with homemade treats, and children's laughter echoed across the green field. The community picnic, once shadowed by fear, now brimmed with joy and gratitude. Mia, sitting on a picnic blanket with Mrs. Caldwell beside her, smiled shyly as other children gathered around. Her red balloon bobbed gently in the air, tied securely to a nearby bench. Mr. Harris stood near the center of the gathering, his voice carrying over the cheerful chatter. Today we celebrate Mia's safe return and the strength this community showed through a difficult time. Neighbors clapped, smiles bright but eyes reflecting the trials they had faced together. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, her voice warm. This day isn't just about one child. It's about every family here. We've learned to watch out for each other, and that's what makes us strong. A young father nodded. It's about keeping our kids safe, but also about building a community where they can thrive. At a nearby table, volunteers served lemonade and cookies. Conversations bubbled with stories of the search. Tommy's quick eyes finding Mia, the coordinated efforts to cover every corner, and the tireless hours spent in hope. Tommy, beaming with pride, was surrounded by friends. I just looked where no one else did, he said modestly. Mrs. Caldwell smiled at him. You were our hero. Across the park, groups of neighbors mingled, their bonds strengthened by the ordeal. Some spoke quietly about ongoing support for families, while others planned future neighborhood watches and regular gatherings to keep the community connected. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly man who had been a steady presence throughout, raised a glass of sparkling cider. To Mia, to this neighborhood, and to the promise we make today, to always be there. Glasses clinked and cheers rose up, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. Mia's parents, now more composed and engaged with the community, joined the circle. Mia's mother knelt down to hug her daughter tightly. Thank you everyone, she said with genuine gratitude. As the afternoon faded into early evening, the park glowed with a sense of peace. Children played freely, neighbors laughed together, and the bonds forged through hardship wove a tapestry of hope. Mr. Harris watched from a bench, reflecting on the journey. The fear that had gripped them all was now tempered by resilience. This is what makes a community, he murmured. Not just shared space but shared hearts. The gathering slowly began to wind down, but the spirit of vigilance and care remained strong. Parents exchanged numbers, volunteers signed up for watch groups, and promises to remain attentive echoed softly under the trees. Mrs. Thompson gathered a small group of parents. Let's keep this going, not just today but every day. A mother nodded. We owe it to our kids. As twilight descended, the neighborhood was bathed in soft golden light, a symbol of renewal and hope. Mia, holding her balloon, looked up at the sky and smiled. She was home, safe and surrounded by a community that would never let her fall. And in that moment, the quiet promise of shared vigilance stretched forward, a shield of love and care for every child who called this neighborhood home. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.